What we're about to do here is very nearly impossible. We're going to make the best paper airplane in the world, and we need a lot of tools to do that. Way more than you would ever think you'd ever need to make a paper airplane. So let's go through the list here. You're going to need a roll of tape that's 25 millimeters wide, and you're going to cut off a 30 millimeter chunk, and I have a handy dandy little gauge here that I've made for just that purpose. It's 30 millimeters from this edge to this line right here, and I just have a little tab I can hang on to it when I'm cutting the tape. So tape, that's 25 millimeters wide. You're gonna make yourself a little gauge to measure 30 millimeters so you don't have to use this clunky thing, a ruler. You need a pair of scissors. You need a protractor. You need a snack clip. The defining part of the snack clip here, it's just like popped apart. My snack clip popped apart. It's never done that before. So we can get the jaws of death back together here. Is it gonna live? Wow, okay. So this clip ends up being not rescuable. It was broken, right? This little guy right here that holds the spring in or holds the other part of it in, it's gone. Gone. Okay, so we had to go to a backup clip situation. They did not have a padded clip at my local market, so I had to put some padding on there. This is a snack clip with a sharp plastic edge, and I put some electrical tape, about 3 layers of electrical tape on there to make it soft on the paper. So that's going to be important later. So you've got the tape, we've got a measuring thing here, sharp pair of scissors, really sharp pair of scissors, really necessary. Protractor to cut, to measure these 2 angles here. You want 155 on one side of a piece of cardboard, 165 on another. You don't have to use the same piece of cardboard. You could have 2 chunks, but I thought, hey, as long as you got a chunk, you might as well just use both sides of it. The other thing you'll need is oh look, there's the plastic piece that fell off that clip. You'll need an X-Acto blade. And I use that to transfer the tape from the scissors to the plane. Once we get a really thin strip of tape cut, you'll need a way to transfer it. Now, I'm using a creasing tool here, a folding tool. These are widely available. You can get them at hobby shops. You get them at all kinds of places on the web. Amazon has them. You'll want one that is made from something besides plastic. Plastic is not great. I think this is made from bone. If you have an objection to bone, just go ahead and get a plastic one. This is a really hard chunk. It's not gonna, sometimes with the plastic ones, you'll get a groove going on one end or the other. You know, if you bang it into a table or something, it's just really easy to score, and that just transfers right to your plane. And lastly, you'll need a ruler just to construct your tape gauge. You can double check the measurements on the strips of tape, but that's really overkill. You don't need to do that. So tape, scissors, protractor, snack clip, a gauge that you're going to make using the ruler and the pair of scissors. You're going to make a little gauge for yourself, transferring tool, folding, creasing tool, and then you'll construct, of course, you know, this 2-angle gauge, 165 down here, 155 here. That's going to be used to set the dihedral angle. So here we go. Let's clear this out of the way. I also, by the way, just so allows me to see the tape better, I have a fabric covered piece of cardboard here with, this is just some cloth over, it's black cloth. That just helps me see the tape better when I'm making cuts. So let's get all of this out of the way. Boom, shazam, we've got all of it cleared. I'm gonna zoom out just a little tiny bit here. So you can see this is A4 paper on the right. It's taller than US letter size on the left. Guinness rules allow A4 paper. So that's difficult to get in the United States, but what you can do is take a piece of US letter size and cut a 19 millimeter strip off of one side, and now you have the correct ratio, and that's what we're going to use today, is a A4 ratio piece of paper, so that we don't have to go run out and buy some A4 paper, which is really difficult to do in America. If you're overseas, you're in luck, you can get it everywhere. In America, we gotta make our own. Okay, so I'm putting the tape dispenser on this black piece right here, just so it's just easier for me to manipulate. So the first step here is going to be folding the plane, and then we're going to make the plane work really nicely by putting little strips of tape on there. So step number 1 in folding the world record plane. I'm just going to move this tape out of the way for now. Just get that guy out of the way. And we're going to start by taking the, let's zoom in just a touch so we're all on that white there. take the top edge and put it against the side. It's a big diagonal fold. We're gonna make diagonal folds each direction. My preferred method for diagonal fold is, of course, to line up that corner and then swing the edges together. And then I'm gonna sweep from the top to the bottom. And every crease you're gonna see me make today on this plane, I am gonna really iron out with this folding tool. So extra amount of time to use the folding tool, but it's totally worth it. Okay, now we're gonna take this corner and bring it down to this into the crease. You could practice your diagonal fold technique by finding the corner carefully and lining up the edges and sweeping from the top to the bottom. That would be one good way to do it. Now, you'll notice I'm creasing with my thumbnail to really get the crease where I want it, and then I'm bringing in the folding tool and going over that thumbnail crease. So I'm really putting an emphasis on really sharp creases, not just kind of sharp creases. It's not amateur hour here. We're getting serious. So now we're going to unfold that. And the next move is to take this edge and put it against the diagonal. We're going to do that in a special way. We're going to give just a little bit of breathing room between the edge of the paper and that diagonal crease. And the reason we're going to do that is to allow the paper to really lay flat when it's folded. And so we're going to give ourselves about 1 millimeter there, all the way up. And this kind of makes this crease a little bit difficult to make. You're going to do a 1 millimeter. I'm going to show you this. Can I zoom in and show you this guy here? Double check focus. It's just, let me move it up even further here. Can I focus there? So when you see that laying against the crease, there's just 1 millimeter difference between where the crease is and where the edge of the paper is. Can you see that? Kind of, sort of, maybe. Maybe right there. Yeah, you can see the crease, and there's just a little gap between the edge of the paper and the crease. And that's going to allow the layers of paper to lay really super flat. And that's a big trick to making a world record plane go the distance. Really, really thin wings. Thin wings are always a must. So in this case, we're going to take this corner over to the end of this crease, and we're going to, let's unfold it and do it. I always, when I'm doing the world record plane, you want symmetry on both sides. So we're going to move this layer over here now and just give ourselves that same amount of gap, about 1 millimeter, top to bottom. Carefully put that into position before we make the crease. There's a way that, in a second, I'm going to show you a way to check to make sure that you got the same amount of gap on both sides. It's really kind of subtle here. Iron out that crease. And I usually go ahead and flatten this part right here so it'll help it even hold together even more. So here's, now this has not been open and shut. So I'm going to open that up and then shut that and then fold this back over the top. And then I'm going to remake my creases nice and sharp here, all the way around, and flatten out this crease that's on top here. And if you look really closely, there's a little tiny square right here where these layers meet. Little tiny square. And if you zoom way in, you can see we got a little tiny square right there. I hold it this way, maybe you can see it. Where the creases meet and the layer is just short. Let's see if you can see it here. I'm gonna hold it up to this camera, see if you can see that. It's a little tiny square. Yeah, there's a little tiny square right there where those creases meet and the layers are just short. There we go. You can kind of see it right there. And so if that's square, then you've got the same amount of gap on both sides. So if it's not square, you might want to reconsider what you've got so far. You might want to start over with your folding. That little square right there will tell you that the wings are going to be more symmetrical than they would be if it's not square, of course. Okay, so the next move is to fold straight down across the middle of the X and pay attention that you're holding these layers flat here as you move this down. And the crease is going to go right through the center of the X. And you're going to know you hit the center of the X when the top layer crease lines up with the very bottom layer crease. Whoa, what are we going here? Let's get this guy going. Okay, so let's go out here. So we're going to fold across the center of the X here. The next move is to fold across the center of the X. You'll know you hit the center of the X when the top layer crease lines up with the bottom layer crease on both sides. So take real care to line that up. And the reason why you want to take care to line that up is because you're going to follow those two creases. So if they're not perfectly lined up, you're going to create some error there. So get really sharp across there. And now we're gonna follow those two creases as promised. And I start by flexing this one and letting go, and flexing this one and letting go. And the reason you want to do that is to keep equal strain on both sides. If I were just to smash that over, I would chase some layers over this way, and then it would cause excess bubbling. So if I chase some layers this way, then chase some layers this way, and then bring them both down at the same time, I keep the stress on the plane equal on both sides. And now I'm ready to make the center crease on the plane. And again, strategy for center crease on a plane, I like to do it as late as possible. This is the latest possible moment you can do it. Let's flip it over, rotate the point to the left, and I'm going to fold this guy in half, carefully watching how the rear corners line up and how the center lines up right at the nose. And I'm just going to line up these corners very carefully here. Sweep back and then sweep forward. And of course, really press that down hard there. You're going to just give the wings a little ironing out there too. Let's get this center crease ironed out where all the layers are. Everything is going to be flat here. Keeping everything nice and flat. Okay, ready to make the wings. We're going to move the, I don't know why I like doing this side first. I'm going to flip it over so the nose is pointed left. I like that side first. I don't know why. I just do that side first. Okay, so things to watch out for. Don't let this thing drift here. Don't let these layers drift here. Keep them, I usually use my thumbs to kind of hold that in place as I start to roll it over. Don't hit the nose. Don't go right on the nose. It'll probably happen that you won't once you start trying to line up the tail. But you'll see this a triangle starting to form back here. You're going to keep going all the way down until that triangle disappears. And that edge just touches that corner, and sweep back and then carefully sweep forward. And it's a good thing that we left some space at the nose. So there's a piece of tape that's going to wrap around the nose. So that is good news there. It doesn't have to be that big, but you definitely want to leave, you know, a millimeter or two, a couple of millimeters on the nose. Let's see how we did here. That layer looks like it's staying together, so that's good. We're going to flip it over, and we're going to do the other side. And I'm going to take care that my crease starts at the nose here, the same place that the other one does, and then I'm going to line up the rear corners, very carefully line up the rear corners, and sweep back, just gingerly sweep back, and then adjust the front of it as best I can so it'll match there. It's all about controlling layers here, okay? So we've got really nice sharp folds going there. It looks like my rear corners came out pretty good. Flip it over and make this wing crease nice and solid here. This is our one chance to really make a nice wing crease. I'm going to go ahead and press the nose down really solidly on both sides as well right here. Good time to do that. Now we're going to do a preliminary set of the dihedral angle, and we're going to use our gauge to do that. The first thing we're going to do is hold onto it right here, flex the wings upward just a bit. And when you're looking down the barrel here, you can kind of see the layers change position right about here where the layers end. And so the first time I made this with really, really smooth paper, I kind of noticed that layer was changing there. And that was the beginning of the idea to get the dihedral angle, the variable dihedral angle. So I'm flattening the nose just a little bit, lifting this up in the middle just a little bit. And now I'll just double check. I'm going to use my 165-degree angle measurement to look at the nose. So it could go just a skosh more right at the nose. That's really good. It's measuring really well right there, 165. And then I'm going to use my 155 back here in the middle of the wings. It looks like, oh, that's sitting in there perfectly. Okay, so the wings are right at 155. Let's just really make sure We're at 155. We're going to, of course, double check and adjust at the end, but it's easier if you start this way, accurately, it's easier to get this guy done. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to move in my black material with my tape, and it's we won't need the gauge again until much later. Keep that guy handy. Keep our tape gauge here. We're going to pull this guy out, and we're going to snip off with our scissors. We're going to snip off 30 millimeters worth of tape. So I'm going to measure 30 millimeters out. The tape gauge. There we go. Got the gauge right at the end of the tape. Going to cut straight across at 30 millimeters. There we go. And now I just spin this guy around, and I use the back corner of my tape dispenser as my tape holding device. I'm just going to put that right there. And we'll put our gauge aside for just a moment. Let's get this so it doesn't look too bad. Now you can kind of see the tape over that white table there. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to move that around as I cut chunks off of it, so you won't always have such a nice shot of the tape dispenser in my piece there. So the first piece of tape we're going to do is going to cover this seam right here. Basically, everywhere there's a seam, can you see that seam on that side? You can see it on this side maybe? Yeah, so this seam right here, that's the first one we're going to do. And we're going to take a piece of tape that's about, if you use the blades of the scissors as about a 1 millimeter adjustment, this guy is going to be about, I'm going to spin this around this way so I can see that edge a little cleaner. There we go. You see how much I'm taking there? I'm going to take about 1 millimeter here, right off of that side. Carefully just cut down parallel with that edge, 1 millimeter, and put the scissors aside for a moment. I'm going to attach that just to the very tip of that X-Acto like that. And that's going to allow me to easily put this guy in position here. I'm going to lay the plane on its side for just a moment. That's going to go in. I'm going to use that millimeter. I'm going to split the tape in half. At the same time, I'm putting a little bit on one side of that seam, a little bit on the other side of the seam, and then I'm rotating the plane and wrapping it around so that it does the same thing on this side. So I've just covered that seam in a way that's going to hold that shut. And that is looking good. And the next move I'm going to do here, I'm going to cut a couple of pieces here that are going to go over this seam and around the nose. So it's kind of tough to hold that together. Okay, so I'm going to cut just a tiny bit wider, just a skosh more than 1 millimeter. That's a kind of a fat seam that I'm covering. So I'm going to cut a little bit more. And chasing the clip around so that you're not covering the seam is always a little bit of a challenge. So now we're covering this seam right here. And this is kind of a weird one because you're kind of going, the seam is more diagonal, but your tape is going to end up going more vertical. So you're kind of splitting across that diagonal there. And you're wrapping it around and doing the same thing on that side. You're really, it's not going parallel with the seam so much as kind of across the seam in a diagonal fashion. That'll help hold that one shut a bit. Now the next move we're going to do here is put a seam in the middle of the wings. And this is going to be a straight up 1 millimeter cut. And we're going to cut this one in half. Just going to leave half of that on the scissors for right now. Flip this guy over like this. I'm going to move my clip a little bit so I'm not in the way. And there is, and we're going to start, this is where the point here comes in handy. I'm going to put that right on top of that seam here. And I'm going to put this out here at the 30 millimeter mark, which is, you know, roughly the middle of the wing. Just right on that wing seam right there to hold that down. burnish that one down right now. You can see I got rid of that bubbling right there. Let's spin this around so it's a little easier to do the other one. Again, I'm gonna leave my gauge out here so I can see my 30 millimeter mark there. I'm gonna take this other half of the strip that I just cut. Carefully transfer that to the X-Acto. And then carefully put this in at the same, whoops, oh. My tape deployed early, so I'm gonna try to use the X-Acto to pick it up. I didn't stick it down hard, so maybe I can pick it up. There we go. I'm gonna reposition it on the X-Acto. Whoa, popped off, now it's on my tie. This is definitely a non-cooperative piece of tape here. All right, you're going down, buddy. Right there. All right. That is looking good. The next thing we're gonna do is put this seam of the tail together, and this is a seriously difficult move here. You're gonna use a 1 millimeter piece of tape. And the trick here is that you're gonna fold this tiny strip of tape so that it goes on both sides of the tail. So we're gonna start up at the top here where the wings meet the tail, and we're gonna try to position it so we can just see half of that piece of tape. And there we go. I'm just gonna pull that up just a little bit. There we go. I got half of it on that side, half of it on that side. I don't know if you can see that. Half on one side. Let's see if I can get in close enough so you can see. Yeah, so you can see I've got half of that tape on one side of that edge, half of it on the other. I'm gonna hold this together. I'm gonna wrap it around so that it goes all the way around on both sides. So this is really super hard to do. I'm making it look much easier than it is, but it is very, very difficult to get that to do that. Let's see here. Let's get this. So you can see I've wrapped around. Wrapped right around that. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to add one more piece below so that tail all holds together nicely. Again, 1 millimeter cut. Transfer to the X-Acto. Lean this guy over. Let's see, are we in focus here? Not at all. And there we've got, you can see it a little bit more clearly on this one, I hope. And I've got, see that? Okay. Get it? It's tough to photograph here. Okay, you can kind of see it there. It's sticking out. I've got half of it adhered to this side, and I'm just going to wrap it around. So there's half of that strip on one side, half of it on this side. It's a tough move. That'll take us some practice to be able to do that. It's very, very difficult. But you need to do it to close up that tail. Now that tail is one solid piece back there, really nicely closed. Okay, so next trick is we're going to put a piece right across this part right here, and that just takes a really small piece. And so we're going to cut a piece to use for that, and we're also going to use it out toward the wingtips to hold the rest of that wing layer down. So 1 millimeter strip, I'm going to start by just snipping off maybe 3 millimeters or so. So I got a lot of strip left there. I'm gonna leave that hanging on the scissors. I'm gonna transfer this tiny little strip here. You can see how small that is. It's that size. And I'm just gonna put that straight across this seam right here. I'm gonna pinch that together, hold it together, and use that to just lock together. And my folding tool here, I'm gonna just burnish that down. Now, one of the big tricks with getting this plane to go the distance is that these two layers, the right wing and the left wing, have to meet the tail in such a way that that's just one continuous sheet of paper. So this little piece of tape helps. If you're a tiny bit off, you can kind of cheat it. You can kind of cheat it flat a little bit here. But this right here needs to be just feel like one layer. If you're feeling across there, you shouldn't feel a bump as you move your finger across there at all. It should just be one solid strip. Okay, I'm going to zoom back out here. We're getting ready to now do this tape. Leftover strip we're going to put right out here at the wingtips. So I'm going to take this chunk that we shaved a little bit off of. The hair got stuck there. And we're going to cut it in half. And half of it's going to go on one wing here, and half of it's going to go on the other. So let's make sure we're in focus here. We are not anywhere near focus. There we go. All right. So one strip is going to go on this wing. Positioning your tape on the X-Acto is always a bit of a problem. Your transfer is going to happen at a different angle than you want. Okay, there we go. We're at that wingtip. Burnish that down. Let's do the other wingtip. Got a lot of particulate matter in the air today. I kind of get the sniffles here just a little bit. I'm sniffling and snuffling my way through the plane here. So you're always orienting the tape so that it's parallel with the seam, and you're just splitting it one side of the tape on one side of the seam, one side of the tape on the other side of the seam. Now, we have a little bit of bubbling here, and if we have any tape left over at all, we could use it to burnish that down. Sometimes if I'm throwing in really variable humidity, I'll put an extra piece there if I can muster it. Okay, so this next piece we're going to cut is a double wide piece, and we're going to cut 2 millimeters, and it's going to get cut into 3 chunks. And the first chunk is going to go right over the nose. So we got a double wide 2 millimeter piece. I'm just cutting almost what's a square there, and I'm flipping this guy over. I'm going to move my clip back a little bit here. And this one, I'm probably going to transfer, well, let's do it with the X-Acto just for fun here. Let's put it on the X-Acto in that way. I'm going to wrap it right around the nose here. Are we in focus? I've lifted it up so we're not really in focus there. Let's get that going. All right, so you're going to wrap this guy right around the nose. Now pinch the nose together as tightly as you can. Put it right across that seam and wrap that around the nose like that. The other 2 pieces, we're going to close up this gap right here. And so we're going to take this piece that's left over here. We're going to chop it in half. And this one I am going to apply with my fingers because I want to be able to hold this seam shut as I'm putting it on there. Are we in good focus there? Kind of, sort of. All right, so kind of close to the nose. Just in back of where the wings attach to the nose. Hold that shut, hold it really tight, and then squeeze that around there. I'm squeezing together with my thumbnails, and I've really made a nice tight chunk right there. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is put that second half of the tape on, and you can see it right there. We're just gonna go halfway between the tape that we put on there and this seam right here. So again, I'm gonna transfer to my hand this time, and carefully put that right in there. Wrap it around and really pinch it good. Make sure that that seam is good right there. So it looks like I've been pretty judicious with my taping scheme here. So it looks like I'll have enough to do the middle of the wings here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Nice fat chunk here for the middle of those wings to hold that down. Now it looks like I have a lot of tape left over here, but you need a couple of really big strips to go across the wings, or at the front across the wings. So don't think that we have extra tape in any way, shape, or form. All right, so So we're going right in the corner here is where we're going with these guys. No wonder I had a lot left over. So I got a nice fat piece right there. I'm covering that seam right there. To the inside. I might still have enough to do that little bulge in the wings. We'll see. I cut my millimeters pretty thin there. So what you're trying to do is cover this junction between where the wing is meeting the body of the plane, and then there's another layer right here. So you're kind of bridging. Show you this guy here. You're bridging this tiny layer right here and right here. So the tape is in there bridging this little corner right here. So it does take a fatter piece of tape to do that. So push back out. Focus up right there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try to do these little bubbles right here. I don't have to cut a piece quite that fat. So I'm going about 1 millimeter here. There we go. We're going to come up pretty nicely with our 2 strips across the front. And cutting that in half. Leave that behind. So I'm going to get a little bonus chunk in here for this little bubble that's happening right here. So we're just going to cover that little bubble right there, about halfway between the 2 strips that are already there. So this is added. This is not strictly in the instructions. This is an added chunk, making 4 chunks per wing, which is 1 more than I originally designed. Originally designed for 3. This will help it go straight. If you can work out so that you have enough tape to do this, your first time through, you may have not even enough tape to do the strips over the front. It's really difficult. It takes a lot of practice to cut your tape strips that thinly and get them in place so that you're happy with them. Okay, so we're going to do another measurement here before we put this. We're going to cut this strip into 2 pieces, and we're going to put it right across here to hold the front of the plane together. But before we do that, we're going to do another quick measurement using our gauge here, and just make sure that we're at 165 at the front and 155 in the middle. Looks pretty close. Looks really close. Okay, so that's good. Our initial adjustment has held, so that is good news. And so I always pull it off of the tape dispenser to make this cut. This is a really hard cut. It's your last cut on the tape. And so going across the front of the plane here, what you want to do is just far enough back so that the whole strip is on the plane. And just hold that in position the best you can. Press down in the middle. Real important to get it adhered all the way across there. And then the next chunk is going to go right behind it. You're just going to leave like 2 widths of tape and put it right back there in a similar position. Try to line up the ends. And this guy is really important in holding the plane together because the plane will crash and the wings will want to separate as the plane crashes into things. And so it's really important to get that guy held together nicely. Now, what you're going to want to do is go all the way around the plane and burnish down all of the pieces of tape all the way around. So we've kind of started there. You can use the edge of a table, let the wing drop off the edge of the table, burnish the back of the plane, burnish this. Same thing on this side, this. Everywhere there's a piece of tape, you want to burnish it down. That's good. Now, subtle adjusting. You'll notice here that the wing is curving just slightly from this wingtip to the back of the plane. You want just a really subtle curve here. This is going to be some of your up elevator, and you can get some up elevator by doing that so that you don't have to add some back here. And it's a really sneaky, subtle way. If you can get a little concave curve going like that from that corner to that corner. And then you're going to have to add a little bit of up elevator right back here. But that's okay. That's normal. You're going to want a little bit right there. But start out like that with just a tiny, tiny bit of up elevator back there. And try this really subtle, just a slight bend right here. That's going to get you some up elevator without causing a lot of drag. And that's the whole taping scheme. That's the world record plane. always start with a gentle throw and work to a more, more energetic, more thrust kind of a throw. So I want to do one other thing here. I want to show you the difference between an A4 sheet and the US letter size sheet. So there's quite a bit of difference in the size of the lifting surface area. You can see that. This plane happens to be the one that went 236 feet 6 inches and hit the other side of the hanger. This was the first time we tried this really smooth A4 paper. So I just thought you'd like to see the difference in the size of the plane you're going to turn up with. And this is a vintage, it's one of my favorite planes. The first time on January 2nd, 2012, the first time we hit the opposite wall of that hanger that we broke the world record in on throw number 1, our first series of throws right there. It's a great, I love that plane. It's all beat up kind of now. You can kind of see it's all kind of ragged, but yeah, it's 9 years old. Paper airplanes don't last that long. Here is the world record plane. You can see just that subtle rake in the dihedral angle from here to here, and that's going to allow the airflow to change as it goes. It adheres further back and it encounters higher dihedral angle, optimizing lift to drag over different speeds, changing its own dihedral angle effectively as the speed on the plane changes. And you can see it almost disappears when you look right down the barrel. That's what you want, just really super thin wings. Recrease everything, burnish down the tape, and you've got a plane that'll go 150, 200 feet, even if it's made from just 26-pound paper. This is 24-pound paper I used for demonstration. You'll want 26-pound paper. That's as close to 100 GSM as you can get in America, or 100 GSM A4. The world record plane. Thanks for watching.